Welcome to episode number 3 of the Ladies Gun Show. Our special guest today is Sheriff Wayne Ivey. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
We are thrilled to have you here. I want to read a little bit of information here on what we're going to be covering today in this episode. We're going to have an open discussion with Sheriff Wayne Ivey on a landmark decision by our Brevard County Commissioners to declare this county a constitutional county. We're also going to discuss the anti-gun movement and the impact on women that occurs every day in the state of Florida. And lastly, we're going to discuss the silent movement against our constitutional rights through a large number of bills that are currently in our Florida legislature designed to stomp on our rights as recognized by the Constitution. Now, quickly, I'm going to have to read our little legal disclaimer. Present company excluded if the sheriff gives you some legal advice, and you definitely want to take it. But today, Richard and I are going to talk on a lot of legal issues in this episode. And unless otherwise stated, we want it to be clear that we are not attorneys. We are going to discuss our observations and impressions and opinions in the show, so we encourage you to seek your own legal advice from a bona fide attorney who specializes in gun laws. And if you happen to be a member of U.S. Law Shield, you can actually refer to your gun law book, or you can call your attorney, because that hotline is manned by an attorney 24 hours, 7 days a week. They're going to give you some great advice, because it's easier to stay out of trouble than it is to get out of trouble.
Well, ain't that the truth?
So I'm going to introduce our sheriff here. And I have this wonderful, we really had to kind of pare this down because you've done so many amazing things.
I've been very blessed.
So we are all blessed to have you as our sheriff. I was talking to some other folks, and they're like, you know what, I'm in such and such county. I'm not going to mention him. We really want Sheriff Ivey here. And I said, well, I'm sorry, you can't have him. We're keeping him. Sheriff Ivey is a 39-year law enforcement veteran. Prior to being elected to sheriff in 2012, he served as the resident agent in charge for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the FDLE, for those of you who don't know, where he helped develop numerous programs that were not only nationally recognized for their innovation, but were identified as national models to investigate crime. Sheriff Ivey has testified before the United States Congress on law enforcement-related matters and has extensive experience in the areas of crime prevention innovation. He is seen as an expert in identity theft, crime in America, human trafficking, domestic violence, and self-defense through mental preparedness. In addition, Sheriff Ivey is one of the biggest proponents of the Constitution, defending our rights, the rights of our county's citizens as recognized by the Constitution, and we are honored to have him here today.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and certainly, as I tell everybody, honored to get to serve as the sheriff of this great community, and to be a part of the team of 1,500 men and women that are out there knocking it out of the park every day to keep everybody safe.
I really appreciate that. You know, I had a lady come in our store the other day, and she was very concerned because we were talking about some of the gun legislation that's going through the works, and she goes, my son told me Sheriff Ivey's going to retire. And I said, well, I hope your son is wrong, but I'm going to ask him on the show and see what your retirement plans might be, just in case there's a rumor going on out there.
I will tell you, my retirement will be when the citizens tell me they've had enough of me. I'm not going anywhere. I love this job. I get asked a lot of times to maybe run for other offices, and I have no interest in that. I've been a cop my entire life. I love getting to serve in this capacity. I never thought I'd get to be sheriff, and as I tell everybody, a lot of people will say, oh, you're at this event, you're at this event, I see you everywhere. And as I tell everyone, this job is like going to Disney World for me. I've waited my whole life to get here. I'm riding every ride in this park before I leave. So I have no intent to go anywhere. I'm obviously running for my third term. And I will tell you that the thing that makes my job the absolute best is not only being surrounded by a great community that loves us and trusts us and protects us, but I'm surrounded by a great team, and at the end of the day, all I've ever wanted to be in my life was a cop, and that's all I'll ever be.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Great answer. Well, now we can all rest easy. The sheriff's not going anywhere because we're not asking him to leave. That's for darn sure. So we're going to go to a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Brevard County Constitutional County Proclamation that just happened this last week, women fighting the anti-gun movement and violence against women, as well as we're going to get into some of the legislation that's in the Florida legislature that a lot of us don't know. And that's the silent movement we're talking about. And it's a silent movement against our constitutional rights. We need to start being aware. We need to be proactive, because I still think that we're behind the 8 ball here. We are not riding on the curve or ahead of the curve by any means. We need to get there if we want to start protecting our gun rights.
You know, you're exactly right. We've got to stop sitting at home, saying, well, this common sense tells you that the Constitution stands for this and stands for that. We've got to quit thinking that everybody's applying common sense, because a lot of these people that are now lawmakers, what you find out is common sense is really not that common anymore. And so we've got to stop being the silent majority and start being the vocal majority. And
Agreed.
And that's the biggest part.
Agreed. Great. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you more about this as soon as we come back from this break.
Hey, it's Vinny with the Vinny Marino Podcast Show. I want you to join me Wednesday evenings as we tackle all the crazy headlines and uncover what's missing. Also, we will have exciting guests from our community who have seen it all and not afraid to spill the beans about it. And finally, we can't forget about Vinny's top rants and raves about traffic, restaurants, and events. Join us on Facebook as we go live and take you behind the scenes of each show and let you be a part of it. It's the Vinny Marino Podcast Show, raw, unedited talk all the time, straight to your dome. Live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios. Listen everywhere you find podcasts. About traffic, restaurants, and events.
Well, welcome back. And Sheriff, I'd like to talk to you about the proclamation. I saw a lot of this on Facebook, great pictures. The Brevard County Proclamation that we are a constitutional county. I know a lot of other counties throughout Florida and Virginia especially, because we're watching Virginia, because I'm thinking that's just a really good...
Everybody's got to be watching Virginia right now.
Yeah, that's a good barometer of what's coming our way, and I think that really people are thinking, oh, this can't happen. It's happening. It's here, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to get moving on it. So a lot of counties adopted the Second Amendment sanctuaries, and they became Second Amendment sanctuaries in Virginia. A lot of people down here are beginning to do the same thing. They're asking their sheriffs to lead them in this proclamation. And I know that for a while you're kind of leaning back, saying, you know what? We're a Second Amendment county. We've always been. We're a Second Amendment nation. We are a constitutional nation. And then you came up with this, actually, I think it was Christine Isnardi, Commissioner.
Yeah, Commissioner Isnardi and I started talking about the Second Amendment sanctuary movement. And, you know, my position on it has been the Constitution is the strongest foundation, the strongest backbone, the cornerstone of our great country. And so, to me, what I get concerned about is we start carving out pieces of it and feeling the need to make it a 2A sanctuary or a 1A sanctuary, whatever it is we're doing, we're actually telling people this document's not strong enough. And I think that's the wrong message. I think the message we need to send is the Constitution is the greatest piece of fabric in our country. It is what others long to have. It is the contract, if you will, that everybody wants to come here and be a part of. And so what made sense to me is why go create a county ordinance that is certainly not stronger than the Constitution? Why not just let everybody know that we're a constitutional county? Because you're right. We're a Second Amendment sanctuary country. We're a First Amendment sanctuary country. We're a constitutional country. And so what we just need to do is remind everybody that the Constitution is a strong, amazing piece of our history, and it stands for all of us. And so it's what Christine Misnardi and I started bouncing back, and she's actually the one that said, well, why don't we do a resolution just, reminding everybody how much we believe in the Constitution and how much we support it. And I thought it was just such a superb idea, and the feedback we've had from the stuff we put up on Facebook and everything else has been just across the board. Hey, this is the right way to go. Now, and here's the further part of that. And I said I don't want to see us weaken the Constitution. We don't do a county ordinance that says driving while intoxicated is not allowed in our county. The reason we don't do that is because we have a state law that says you can't do it. So why would we go say, the Second Amendment is recognized in our county when we already have the Constitution that's saying it? So that type
makes
of
a lot
mentality
of sense.
is what went into it.
That makes a lot of sense. So,
as a citizen,
as a citizen, there we go.
What does that mean to us? How does that support us? What is that doing for us?
So we're very blessed in Brevard County first and foremost. We have great commissioners that do apply common sense in their approach to things. So as a citizen, what it says to me, even before it speaks to me as a law enforcement officer, is that our Constitution is standing strong. Our president has made sure that our Supreme Court has the right conservative values to represent and to protect that most important piece of our history and that document. And so, I think what we have to do is stop sitting at home on the sofa. I saw it when we were battling to try and put more protection on our school campuses. And what happened is, to everyone that made good sense to, which it makes perfect sense that, we want to be able to have a first line of defense there to protect our students. But I saw everybody that thought that was a good idea. They didn't go to the meetings. They didn't come out and vocalize that they thought it was a good idea.
Exactly.
And I think the reason for that is they just went, it just makes perfect sense.
Silent agreement.
Silent agreement, yeah. Yep. And those that were anti to it were very vocal and were, in your face saying, don't do this. And at the end of the day, they won. And so we have to stop sitting at home just thinking everything is normal. All you got to do is look just as far to the north to Virginia, and you can see what's happening there. And I think you have to look further than just what's happening right now. And that is, look at how they got to where they are. And that was through influence in pouring tons and tons of money into elections.
Yeah, outside influences.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really
and by the way,
scary.
outside influences who have their own best interest in mind. So, we've got to stop allowing that to happen. Now, it's not, yes, they're pouring tons of money. Everybody's probably wondering what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep Junie from getting under the table. He probably thought there was some brisket or something. But
somebody's headset goes flying off. He's tangled in the wires.
Exactly. But, we have to look at, well, why are they doing this? Why are they picking off police? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to weaken that cornerstone. Is what they're trying to do. So we just have to make sure
they're being successful in weakening that cornerstone.
They are.
We've got to stop being so quiet about this.
But you know what Virginia is to me, and I think what it is to the rest of the nation, it is a thump on the head wake up call. To a lot of people that are just are sitting there going, no, I don't have to do anything. I'll tell you the first thing we have to start doing. We have to make sure that we're sending the right people to Tallahassee and the right people to Washington. And by the right people, I mean the people that share the same values and beliefs that we do. And if the value and belief that they share is not that the Constitution is the most important document and that we're going to abide by the Constitution, then they don't belong in Tallahassee and they certainly don't belong in Washington.
Yeah, we need to be really, really selective and get that Constitution has to be on the top of their list. Wonderful. We've got women who are fighting the anti-gun movement and violence against women, and we've got a lot of issues here where the legislation that's coming down the pike, because it's actually in Florida and Florida's legislature, and that's another thing that we talked a little bit about on our last show. But this show, we're going to talk about it a little bit more. That there are a lot of proposed laws in the Florida legislature right now. And a lot of them are strong enough that they're just going to intimidate people. I don't know how many people come into my store already because they're hearing what's on the news, the general news, and they're hearing what's happening up in New York and New Jersey, and they automatically already assume that firearms are registered to people down here in Florida, which means there's a registry. If there's a registry, that means you pull up a list of people and you go, these people have 4 guns in their house, knock on the door. No, I don't want 3 guns. We know there's 4 guns in your house. We want all 4 guns. Well, we don't have a registry here in Florida, and we're constantly explaining to people that gun's not registered to you. So when her husband passes away and she's got a bunch of these frightening things left in the closet, she doesn't know what to do with them, and she's thinking she's harboring something illegal. And we got to tell you, ladies, if you've got a lot of guns in your closet that maybe your husband had left you, they're automatically yours. Right. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. And I get asked that question a lot too. And you're exactly right. And a lot of people do. They incorrectly assume that what's happening in New York and places like that is happening here. What kind of scares me the most is to see, the list of gun-related bills that's in Tallahassee. Now, I will tell you that the ones that we need in there, like the church security bill, those are good bills. But right now, anybody that's sitting in Tallahassee or sitting in Washington that's thinking about putting any restrictions on gun owners ought to have their head examined.
I know.
And I've said this before, and I will say this again. I've been around guns my entire life. My kids have been around guns their entire lives. Just like anything else, education and awareness is the key.
Exactly.
But what we have to do, I think, as a nation, is when we start looking at some of these active shooters that are happening. In fact, when you look at the majority of them, what you have to start looking at is this is not a gun issue. This is a mental health issue. And our mental health system in this country is broken. Throw the baby out with the bath and start again, because it really is failing us as a nation. And I really think that we're not only failing us as a nation, we're failing the victims of mental health as well, and not making sure they're getting the right treatment they need.
Exactly.
And we also need to have these people who are convicted of crimes with firearms, we need to have them incarcerated. We need them to go through the system cleanly, effectively, removing them from society. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the gentleman that was, I don't even want to call him a gentleman, let's take that back. The guy who went into the church in Texas with the trench coat and was shot and killed by one of the church security citizens, was he not having some mental health issues, and did he not have a firearm felony expunged from his record in New Jersey? So one of the gun states that has the tough gun laws, but if you're caught with a gun, now we'll just kind of let this slide and put you back out on the street. That makes no sense.
Yeah, I think the first thing you have to address is anybody that possesses that kind of mentality, that kind of evil, is having a mental health crisis. And most of the time when you peel back the layers of the onion, go down to Parkland, for example, and look at the missed opportunities to intervene in that mental health crisis that was taking place down there. That's the problem. We're missing those opportunities, and we have to make sure that those that truly need mental health assistance are getting it. Those that are evil and possess that ability to harm others have got to be kept in a place where they can't hurt anybody, including themselves. I think that's certainly we got to keep everybody out of harm's way.
And I also think that intervention that takes place, a lot of people are saying, well, the red flag law, that's the intervention we need. Let's do, that's the answer. And I don't believe that that's the kind of intervention that we needed to have. Down in Parkland, the school could have intervened. They could have been stopped at a school level.
There were 17, before that day, there were 17 missed opportunities to intervene and to do something that would have acted. One of them was the school system down there had decided they wanted to handle what were really criminal incidents as administrative incidents within the school, as behavioral incidents.
And they failed, obviously. That was a failure.
Failed miserably. And we're pretty fortunate here. Dr. Mullins and his team work very well with us. We're putting as many uniform deputies and officers as we can into our schools, as the budget will allow us to do. But even prior to that and with that, Dr. Mullins and them are very good at saying, you guys handle criminal issues, we'll handle behavioral issues, and there's a very clear
That's
defined
wonderful.
line between those two. So
It's wonderful.
you know,
Recognizing that line is
exactly.
half of the,
Yeah.
the problem. Now, I got to tell you, being a ladies' gun store, we have a large number of teachers who are coming to us to become armed. So when you have these people who are fighting against putting guns in the classroom and how teachers don't want that, you may have one woman who's afraid of guns and she tells 5 people, and all of a sudden she is speaking on behalf of all the female population of teachers in Brevard County.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is not that case.
Oh, it
All,
was-
they're quiet.
Yeah, actually,
Very quiet
there
about
was,
it.
There was a poll done of the employees, and 650 of them said that they wanted to help protect the schools, that they would take on that initiative to go
Nice.
through the training to
Outstanding.
to be that responsible. Of the 650, 49% of them already had their concealed carry permits. And so
Perfect.
what we ended up doing, because the vocal minority went down there and yelled and screamed and stomped,
Yeah.
what we ended up doing, instead of taking those 650 people and vetting them and saying, man, just imagine if just half of them had gone through the system and everything. Imagine how many people we would have on our campuses. And what we ended up doing was spending $1.2 million to hire 27 guardians, which, by the way, those guardians are primo. Between them,
Excellent.
they had 400 years of military service.
Nice.
And that. So I'm not discrediting the guardians, because they're phenomenal. But imagine what we could have gotten from a volunteer status to have those.
Budget-wise,
I
that
think
money
you'll
could have
see
gone
us-
somewhere
I think
else.
you're going to see us come back to that too, and I say
I
that
hope so.
because you have Katie Campbell, Tina Deskovich, Matt Susan, all of them
Yes.
now that are saying do it, and I think
Excellent.
the others are looking at it as well.
I think a lot of people in Brevard County selected those people and put them in their positions because of that.
Yeah.
Because some of the anti-firearm
One of the
board
things
members.
one of the things that we heard was, they're not responsible. There's a lack of responsibility. Let me tell you something. Our teachers are responsible for furthering our country. They're
Absolutely.
responsible for
Yeah.
furthering the next generation, and they're the most responsible people we probably have. So, I look back across my my time in K through 12. And there were teachers that I would have felt very comfortable. And let's not kid each other. You guys know this in your business.
Yeah.
There are some people that shouldn't have a gun. I always tell everybody, my wife shouldn't have a gun.
Yeah.
She's,
Does she know that you feel that way?
she does. Yeah. And,
Okay. Does she have a gun?
She has well, here's why she shouldn't have a gun. She's a redhead. And redheads should not be allowed.
You need
have guns.
to dig
In fact,
yourself
I'm-
out of this
I'm
hole,
going to,
Sheriff.
I'm going up to Tallahassee when I leave here and ask him to do some type of bill that redheads can't have guns. She does have guns. She has more guns than I actually have, and she is a phenomenal shot.
I'll bet she is. That's no
but-
surprise.
Yeah. So, but there are people that should not have a gun. Secondly,
I agree.
there are people that do not want a gun, and do not feel like they could ever use a gun to protect themselves. And to those people that have accepted that about themselves, I say bravo, because
Absolutely.
if you read The Art of War by Sun Tzu says that you have to know yourself and know your enemy. Well, these are people that know themselves. They know they would never rely upon a firearm. So what we ask them to do is let's look for some other measures. Certainly they're not going to be as prominent in a gun battle, but let's look for some other measures to help protect yourself.
Absolutely.
And those might be tasers. They might be a fire extinguisher on the wall that we're environmental arming with. Whatever it is, we want them to at least have that mindset of looking to protect themselves.
Absolutely. All right. And what else did we want to talk about here? We've covered everything. Why don't we go to a quick break? And then we will come back and we're going to talk some more about the silent movement in Florida here and taking away our gun rights.
Femme Fatale Arms and Training focuses on meeting the needs of women and men. who are either new to guns or looking to get more involved in both defensive and recreational shooting. Our goal is to provide a non-judgmental environment where you can learn to safely handle firearms and defend yourself effectively. We offer free counseling on the selection of a firearm that suits a client's needs and abilities and carry a range of small firearms that are easy to handle. Femme Fatale's training is designed to take you from zero to badass with a full curriculum of classes that starts off with the basics and develops your skills and techniques in a very prescribed manner that will build your confidence and capabilities. Our instructors are highly experienced with backgrounds in law enforcement and the military, but with a non-intimidating and support approach. Come see us for all of your firearms and training needs. Femme Fatale Arms and Training, a ladies' gun store. Learn more at ladiesgunstore.com.
U.S. Law Shield is a legal defense membership program, the largest, most comprehensive coverage to protect your Second Amendment rights. Whether you use a gun or not, any legal weapon is covered. For $10.95 a month, all your attorney's fees are covered. There are no caps, no limits, no retainer, and U.S. Law Shield is not a reimbursement plan. U.S. Law Shield covers criminal and civil legal defense 24/7, 365 days a year, emergency attorney answered hotline. We at Femme Fatale Arms have partnered with U.S. Law Shield and are all members ourselves. To sign up, visit our webpage, ladiesgunshow.com, come to our store, Femme Fatale Arms, or go directly to uslawshield.com. And be sure to use promo code FEMM 2017 to lock in your low rate and to get 2 months free. U.S. Law Shield, legal defense for self-defense.
Welcome back to the Ladies Gun Show podcast. We have Sheriff Wayne Ivey as a guest. We're up to a point in the show where we want to talk about some of the bills in the House and some of the efforts on the part of the gun control crowd in order to restrain our rights. Currently, we have 43 gun bills now that's in the legislature. 34 of those are against our rights. 3 of them are neutral, and only 6 of them are what you could consider pro-Second Amendment or somewhat pro-Second Amendment. There's been some changes in the pro-Second Amendment ones as well. We're looking at House Bill H-183, which is considered a pro one, which was designed to enable elected officials to conceal carry in their meetings. Well, it turns out that is now the only bill that has a companion bill in the Senate. Of all the pro-gun bills that we've got, which actually I say all, but there's only 6, only one of them has a companion bill, which means it's the only one that can go any place. And the only one that can go any place is the one that supports the elected officials carrying guns. The other ones still do not have a companion bill and will not be able to go anywhere as a result.
Okay, so you're saying here, or what they're saying here is, if you're an elected official, you have they're going to give you permission to defend yourself or defend your life.
Pretty much.
But for the rest of us sitting there in that meeting observing, well, we just don't have the pleasure of that right to be able to defend ourselves and defend our lives.
And that's the only pro-gun bill that's been recognized by both the House and the Senate right now.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like giving themselves a tax break and stuff. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And this is Florida. So everybody, you need to be aware, we're talking Florida. We're not talking national, some other state, but this is some of the crazy stuff that the people that you and I have elected put into office.
Yeah, let's just let's put this right where it is. The Senate, and we're fortunate here with our Senate representatives, senators and representatives in Brevard. They get it. They understand the Constitution and the importance of that government's primary responsibility is to protect its citizens. They understand that. But let's stop talking about those here in Brevard for a minute. Let's talk about the rest.
Yeah.
All right. Because what you're seeing is a collective effort in the Senate to do 2 things. 1, target gun owners' rights.
Exactly.
And 2, go soft on crime. And both of those are just as concerning because they really interconnect each other.
I agree.
And when you look at some of the bills that are on here, to restrict our rights to do registries and everything else, they're not going to have a single chance of surviving. And the reason they're not going to have a chance of surviving, thankfully, is because we have a strong constitutional House that is standing up. And I can tell you from the sheriff's perspective,
Okay.
in the past 2 years, had it not been for the House, we would have some crazy and I mean, I'm talking about completely crazy relaxation of being tough on crime. And the mentality right now in the Senate side of it, you have senators like Senator Brandis, who claims he's a strong conservative. He is not. He is absolutely wanting to go soft on crime. He's wanting to do away with the 85% rule. So basically, you become a victim of crime. The person that perpetrated that crime only has to do 85% of their sentence, which to me is a slap in your face. He wants to reduce it to 65% of their sentence. And they hang their hat on that they're doing this because the prisons are overcrowded. We'll build more prisons.
Why not? Let's put the money in. They've got all this money in to enforce all of these new laws that they want to be moving. They're gonna be able to access this money. Let's access this money. Let's build taller prisons.
We see all these polls that go around and all this stuff. I guarantee you, if you polled everyday working people that are out here, stretching every penny they can to make a living and doing it the right way and the legal way, I guarantee if you poll them and say, would you mind us building more prisons to house bad people in, people that are victimizing our citizens? Guarantee you they would give you a thumbs up. Build them. That's what. Look, people want to be safe, and there's only two ways to safety. That is, one, government provides the ability to protect yourselves. And two, government is doing what they're supposed to do from a law enforcement standpoint in protecting us. But some of these bills that you're seeing, wanting to do background checks on ammunition.
Let's go back quick to the citizens and what you just said. The citizens who want to see this, yes, I'll pay a little bit more for some more prisons and so forth. So if you agree with it, don't sit quiet. You agree with it, stand up, go, hell yeah, I can say hell on this. Hell yeah, I support this. Here I am standing in the street with either my badge or my flag or what have you. But citizens who agree with this stuff, you've got to stand up. Otherwise, it's like, all the naysayers are going to be standing. No, we don't want that. And of course, their cause gets promoted, even though the silent majority,
I did a Facebook video not long ago talking about this soft on crime movement. And literally the theory is that Florida's crime rate this is their theory, all right? Remember me saying earlier, common sense is really not that common. Their theory is that we're at an all-time low in our crime rate. And so now is the time to go soft on crime. Well, my theory is we're at an all-time low in our crime rate. We got our boot firmly planted on the throat of crime. Let's choke it out. Let's finish this.
Agreed. We're ahead on crime because your team, all the other law enforcement officers out there are working hard. You're keeping that crime not only under control, but you're actually beginning to minimize it. That's something to celebrate, and that's something for us to continue to support you in this era of anti-law enforcement.
Yeah.
We need to be supporting you guys and cheering you on for doing such a great job and keeping us as safe as you are, in spite of these laws that are being proposed out there.
Yeah, and you're right, and we're blessed in Brevard, man. Our citizens, I said it earlier, our citizens love us, they trust us, they protect us just as much as we protect. I see it on our Facebook page. Somebody will go on one of our Facebook posts and they'll say something negative about one of our deputies, and man, they get attacked. I mean, it's brutal. I almost feel bad for them after that happens. But our citizens love us, and the other part of that is our citizens have partnered with us. And somewhere along the way, I don't know where this happened, but somewhere along the way, our legislators and our congressional members forgot that our citizens are our partners.
Yeah.
And we know it here. We know how many crimes we prevent because our citizens are engaged with us. We know how many crimes we solve because our citizens are engaged with us. But somewhere along the way, those that are tasked with making these laws forgot that our citizens are our partners. And more than that, they forgot that our citizens are extremely intelligent. And this is the way I always look at it. Our citizens are smart enough to pick who they're going to put into office. And, for somebody that's an elected official to think that the citizens don't have the ability to know how to protect themselves or to be responsible or to be accountable
Absolutely.
is a slap in the face.
It is.
And our citizens put us in office. And so to me, I look at them and go, they're responsible enough to vote somebody into office. They're responsible enough to protect themselves. They're responsible enough to help us protect this community and to not consider that is just absolutely
Our elected officials could use a little humility.
Oh, absolutely. I the last time I was up at the Capitol testifying about the opioid epidemic, and actually the last time I was up there talking about immigration. But one of the things I always take notice of is the elevator bank. When you go to the elevator bank, there's an elevator that says senators only. And I thought to myself, when did you get too good to ride with your constituents?
Exactly.
If we
I don't
had,
know.
if we had an
I'd
elevator-
have to fight the urge to get on that
yeah,
elevator.
absolutely. I don't know that. I don't know. What if there's something in there in the lighting or something that makes you not have common sense?
Superpowers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
that's better.
So I'm
yeah.
scared to get on it.
Kryptonite. Sorry.
Yeah. Imagine if we had an elevator at the sheriff's office that said sheriff only. My team would throw me out the window.
Isn't that
and
nuts?
rightfully so. So
That's a shame.
You know,
That's a shame, and that shouldn't exist.
yeah. It's look. The people that are in the Senate, Brandis and these others, Galvano taking money. From,
Holy cow!
I mean, I can't even fathom that. But when you look at some of these bills and the absurdity of them, and then you get to a bill that just makes perfect sense, like the church security bill, the being able to protect our houses of worship. That bill, what that bill is about.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's really important. In fact, I'll be testifying Tuesday in regards to that. But that bill is, if you have a house of worship that is also a school. So Monday through Friday, it's a school.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday morning, it's a house of worship.
Yeah.
As the state law is written right now, someone with a concealed carry can't carry their gun to church on Sunday because on Monday that place is a school.
That's
And
crazy.
So, yeah, it is. And fortunately, our state attorney, Phil Archer, has said, yeah, we're not going to be enforcing that here in Brevard. So,
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, so,
all the parishioners out there, did you hear that?
so
Make
but
sure you're
here's-
safe.
Yeah, here's the irony of it. We want our citizens. A, we trust them here in Brevard. B,
Yeah.
we want them to help us protect. I call people that are prepared at a house of worship the ministry of defense.
Nice.
And so when you look at it, this bill cleans that up, and that's really all this is. It just needs to be cleaned up. It needs to say, hey, yes, when it's a school, if that's the state law, which it is, then you have to abide by that. But when it's not an active school, then everything else just
I think
goes
that's
into
great.
common sense. And so, great bill. I'm hoping it's going to move. And you mentioned earlier, some of these bills don't have a companion in the House
Right.
or in the Senate. And a lot of people, if you're not familiar with the legislative process, the House chamber and the Senate chamber has to have the same exact bill. The language has to be the exact same for it to go.
Exactly.
Up. Now, there's another very positive to some of this lunacy, the soft on crime approach, the taking away gun owners' rights and stuff like that. And that is, we have a guy sitting in the Capitol by the name of Governor Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
That's not going to put up with any of that nonsense.
Awesome.
I can tell you, he is A, dedicated his entire life to protecting citizens.
Good.
B, he is a strong conservative voice for us.
Perfect.
And C, he applies common sense. I think when you look at his approval ratings across both aisles, you see that common sense approach is working.
Good deal.
Excellent. Now, going back to the church thing, unfortunately, somebody's also submitted another church bill that says you can't own or possess within 1,500 feet of a school church or anything like that. So they're trying to get that into place. So if you even live within 500 yards of a church, you can't own a gun.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other bills that's out there.
Can you just read off whatever the bill number is too, so
SB
that any of
634.
so our listeners can look it up themselves
Yeah,
and see it for themselves.
Call your senators and make your opinion known on that, because most of these bills are contrary to anything that would be beneficial to anybody to begin with.
And I want to talk about the myth out there, because some people, if you're not involved in the Second Amendment or in the legislative process like we are on a regular basis, you may not understand everything that goes into somebody being able to get a firearm. And I think one of the simplest ways for me to demonstrate is a lot of times you'll say, well, we need background checks on people that are buying firearms. Well, you do. You know it. You're
Absolutely.
Every
in a
single
store.
one.
And one of the things that I like to use as an example of just how restrictive our current rules are is my wife's a concealed weapon permit holder. And so if she and I go to your store to purchase a gun, and we're both buying a gun, all right, she can walk out of the store with that gun because she has a concealed carry permit.
That's right.
She's been through a background. She's been through a fingerprint check. She's been through the mental health side of everything to be able to get that permit. So that's in place. Conversely, I can't.
Right.
I can't walk out of the store.
You have
with
a 3-day wait.
I have
We
a 3-day
see that
wait.
all the time.
And listen, I could just as easily go and get a concealed carry permit. And
Of course
get
you
a
can.
background pro- But I've been a cop since I was 18 years old, so I've never needed a concealed carry permit. But what I like about that example is it shows there is a process in place.
Absolutely.
That good people go through when they're going to get a gun. That process is in place, and we all understand it, and we all accept it, and we work within it. But it's not just, oh, hey, I'm going in there and buy a gun, and then 5 minutes later going to go shoot somebody. It's not.
And they've got these myths out there that, well, you know what? He can go and order a gun online, and then he's got a gun. Well, see, a lot of times, a lot of this stuff is blown out of proportion because if you're not living it like we are, you assume that you order a gun online, just like you do from Amazon, and it arrives in a box on your front step. And that doesn't happen because anybody who sells a gun online has to ship it to a federally licensed firearm licensee. We do the background check. So it's still getting a background check. You're not just grabbing a gun off of the internet. And the problem is people don't realize that. And now, oh, I just educated somebody. But they're taking that misinformation and they're building on it and they're fertilizing it and they're getting these people thinking, holy cow, we live in a wild country. This is frightening and we need common sense gun laws. Yeah. And personally, I think I lack common sense gun laws because I really don't see any real benefit because there's already laws out there. Now, this newest thing that came through decision pending with the Parkland legislation, I have experienced it. Again, we sell guns, so I've experienced it firsthand with my customers. The majority of those are females, and females, of course, do a minimal percentage of the crimes out there in our communities. But these are women that are getting decision pendings, and instead of having the benefit of the federal laws, which give they give 3 days for that background check. So you have the FDLE has 3 days to perform, or actually it's the NICS system. We happen to have that FDLE filter in that Floridians voted in a long time before I got here. But anyway, so that little filter before you get the national benefit of the background check, that filter stops the background check, and they go into an indefinite hold. Where if you went straight to the national background check, they have 3 days to perform either yes or no. Every single one of the decision pendings that I've had in my store have been between 4 to 8 months waiting, and they still got approved. So that means somebody who can legally own a firearm actually was denied that right, that Second Amendment right, while somebody was shuffling papers, and still the end result is yes, you can own a firearm. There wasn't an issue.
There was nothing that would have precluded it.
And that's just Floridians. We got to wake up. Yeah. Other states don't have this stuff. We are no longer the gunshine state.
Yeah, and and again, you look at this. What is it? 3 pages, I think, of bills that
it's like
are
43 of them.
Yeah, it's really, you're to me. I can't speak for everybody else, but I'm sitting there wondering, if this is all you're doing, if as a legislator, because you're only allowed to submit so many bills anyway, if this is all you're doing, and you're trying to take away good law-abiding citizens' rights, and on the other side of it, you're trying to give criminals their rights back, and you're trying to lessen the amount of time they serve and everything else, you have no business saying that you protect citizens because you don't.
Where is the
represent
common
anybody.
sense you're referring to?
Yeah,
There's no common sense in that.
We go back to the soft on crime thing. They're wanting to do away with the 85% rule. They're wanting to, do all of these things that, do away with minimum mandatories. There's a senator out there's got a bill to do away with minimum mandatories. How about this? How about we stick with the concept that you have to protect those you took an oath to protect?
Right.
How about we stick with that? It's very clear. Government's one responsibility is to protect its citizens. That's it. How do I believe we protect our citizens? I believe we give them the ability to protect themselves. Because the likelihood of me standing next to one of y'all when you're about to be the victim of crime, well, if I'm standing next to one of y'all ain't gonna be a victim of crime. even if I'm not there. So, because I know how you guys are, but the likelihood of me standing next to one of our citizens when they're about to be the victim of a crime is very slim and none. So for me, our job, if we consider government's one responsibility to protect citizens, our job is to make them aware of the different types of crimes they could be impacted by, give them the very best ability and awareness to protect themselves, and allow them to exercise their rights to protect themselves. And you put those three things into that recipe, and that's a recipe for success. This is a recipe for disaster.
It's a mess.
Absolutely.
We've even got wording in some of these that strikes the language for stand your ground law, so that no duty to retreat within your own home. They want to remove that capability as well. And that's just totally weakening, while at the same time withdrawing some of the language that also requires mandatory sentences for criminals. So it's kind of a double-edged hit.
Not long ago, I in fact, it was probably 2013, 14, I started the push for open carry in Florida. I shouldn't say I started the push. I joined that push. When you look at it, there's 45 other states that have some form of open carry. Now, there's two forms out there. One is constitutional carry, where you don't have to have a permit. You don't have to have anything. You can carry an AR across your back. You can do any of that. What we were pushing for in Florida was for you to have the option. And that option was you would have a permit, and that permit would allow you to carry. It was your choice if you wanted to carry concealed or if you wanted to carry open. Right. And maybe you want to do both. Maybe you're going to church on Sunday morning, you want to carry concealed. Maybe you're coming out of the movie theater at 10 o'clock at night, and you want to have it open so that anybody thinking about doing harm knows you have the ability, have that. So I wanted you to have that option. 45 other states have some form of open carry. Wow. And it was funny because I was going on vacation, and my wife and I love the mountains. In fact, we have a cabin up in the mountains now. But before we had the cabin, I was going up, and my daughter rode up with me, and she's a big Second Amendment person as well. And so we decided we were going to go into a gun store. And so my daughter was riding up with me. My wife was going to fly in. My daughter was going to fly back. So we had a little bit of time to kill. So we went into a gun store, and it was right in the middle of this push. And, of course, Tennessee is one of those that has open carry. Oh, yeah. And so I knew that, and I'm standing in this gun store in Tennessee, and everybody's walking around open carry in there. And I asked the store owner, I said, hey, you guys have open carry up here. And I was going to follow it with, any problems with that, anything like that. I said, hey, you guys have open carry up here, right? And he goes, no, man, you can't walk around with a beer in your hand up here. They'll put you in jail. And I just started laughing, because the irony of it is.
He didn't even think gun.
Yeah, he didn't even think gun, And so, and then when I told him what I was really asking, his response was, yeah, doesn't everybody? And so there's the thought that it'll be the Wild Wild West. It's not. In fact, until 1987, Florida was an open carry state. I drove to school every day with a shotgun rack in the back of my truck and a shotgun in it. Never once thought about going in, shooting up the school. Never did. You know why? Because A, I don't have evil in my heart, and B, I had two parents at home that always beat any evil I had out.
There you go. Consequences.
Yeah. So, but.
Can you explain to a lot of the ladies that are listening, how would they benefit from open carry, other than it's a whole lot easier than trying to find clothes to conceal carry under? But a lot of women are afraid, oh my goodness, what if they know I have a gun, then they're going to attack me because I have a gun. Now that I don't think is true, but can you explain that from your perspective, how that works?
I'll explain it from the thing, and you used the word a little while ago, it's a deterrent. I always use these two examples. Go and use a search engine, any search engine you want, and search robberies at the pawn shop. And what you'll find is zero, okay? And now if you see one that says pawn shop robbed, if you read it, it'll say they threw a brick through the window at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
But nobody goes in and robs the pawn shop. Why? Because everybody in the pawn shop's carrying a gun on their hip, and everybody knows that.
Exactly.
And Google search fights at the gun show. Zero. There's no fights at the gun show because it's an equal playing field. And so that's the beauty of open carry. And I also, a lot of times I'll get asked about a business that says no firearms inside.
Yeah.
So here's the way you got to look at it. You have to look at property owner rights also have a place in our world. And just like in your home, you have the right to say, I don't want somebody smoking in my home, or I don't want somebody to put their feet on my sofa. I think those businesses have that right. Now, does it make sense? No. Does it mean you have to go in there and shop? No, it doesn't. But I do believe in property owner rights. And quite frankly,
Fair enough.
when you look at the church security bill, to be completely honest with you, the church security bill is not a gun bill. It's a property rights bill.
Right.
Because it's private property. And so how can you restrict what somebody can do on private property in one sense? And everybody will say, oh, well, it's a law. Well, okay, well, then let's go over to Disney World, where the Constitution says you're allowed to have a firearm. The state law says you're allowed to carry a concealed carry if you have a concealed carry permit. But Disney doesn't allow you to have it inside. Why? Because it's property owner's right. Well, the church is the same thing. And
That makes a lot of sense.
This
That
is a
bill should
property
pass.
owner's right. This is not a gun issue. But it'll be looked upon. I promise you, Tuesday in the hearing, there will be the anti-gunners that are standing
Of
up
course.
there saying this is all wrong and the world's going to end.
With their fancy hats and the signs.
Yeah. And I'll just be there with Junie.
So other laws we're looking at, just really quickly on a couple of them. Like I said, the stand your ground law, they want to remove that. They want to have local legislation determining your gun laws and not state or county.
How about that database, keeping a database?
There's a few
or
of them
the
with it.
FDLE, who's actually getting involved now, and they want the FDLE to start taking.
There's one I really got to point out, and that's SB
Okay.
7028, and that's where they kind of snuck some gun control stuff mixed in with some other issues, and the whole bill starts off talking about disclosure of information, as well as EMTs and paramedics required to expose information as if there's a threat. But then it goes on and it gets into private sales, which has nothing to do with the first half of the bill, which require a detailed ATF form, a signed affidavit, a waiting period, and a background check for a private sale with criminal penalties if you do not follow through with these. It's like a potential sentence. But they're combining that with the top half of the bill. It's kind of buried into it. And right now, it's actually the only one of these bills that's gone through more than one committee. It passed the Infrastructure Committee, and it's currently in the Appropriations Committee with only one left to go. And it's because the first half of the bill is very reasonable, but then this completely unrelated gun control to eliminate private sales is tucked into the bottom of it. And I think people aren't seeing that.
And
that's a big problem because even if you go back to some of the constitutional amendments that we had the last time, the constitutional amendment will be about offshore drilling, and then somewhere in it it'll be about kids have to get at least a 70 on a test or something.
Exactly.
And so you have to be really, really careful when you're looking at these and trying to dissect what the actual intent or change in the bill is. And that's a common practice that you see where they embed all of this other stuff in it. And you read it first, go, well, that just makes good sense.
Right.
But if you don't read all of the fine print, as we've all heard, you end up with that. And the biggest part of this is be vocal, get out, talk to your legislators, talk to those that represent you, and tell them, I expect you to protect the Constitution. Not just the Second Amendment. Trust me, the Second Amendment's not the only thing that's under attack in our Constitution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything's under attack.
It is.
There's about six of them.
I kind of look at the Second Amendment as the military of the Constitution.
Right.
But when you really look at it, our entire Constitution's under attack, and so we have to make sure that we're being vocal, telling those that represent us here what we want, what the citizens want, because that's really their mission, is to carry to Tallahassee the will of the people.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up here in a couple minutes, or we've got about a minute left. So basically, let's. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up, Sheriff, that you wanted to talk and kind of use this platform to reach out to people?
Just real quick. I'm going to also be Tuesday up in Tallahassee speaking about. We put out a video on it actually, and it's the ability to have a judge include a family pet in a domestic violence injunction.
Nice.
And,
I read about that.
yeah,
Yes.
and so we're pushing that. It's got great support. It's being supported heavily by all of our representatives and senators here in Brevard. But we're gonna be pushing that message out even more. And all too often we see where the pet becomes a bargaining chip. The pet becomes a threatening tool. We just saw in Celebration just last week where the family pet was killed, as well as everybody in the family.
Yep.
So we're going to be pushing that. I know our people here our citizens have already called all of our local representatives, but just across the board, any of our listeners here in Florida, let them know to support that bill.
Excellent.
Absolutely, yeah. I was talking to the ladies at Serene Harbor, and they're one of the few domestic violence shelters who actually, you can escape your abuser, and you can actually bring your pet with you. They actually have it. Yeah, they provided, and this is something that bringing a little bit of awareness to domestic violence. Last year, Serene Harbor alone provided 5,515 nights of shelter. 47% of those were sheltered with children. And I got this letter from them on Thursday, so that means that Wednesday night they had 13 women, 5 children, and 1 pet staying with them. So really, instead of having, and of course these women are fleeing for their lives with their children, and then, most of us think our dog is just like a family member. It's like one of our children. And I have heard where the dog is murdered. It suffers a horrible death at the hands of this violent person. Yep. So I think that's a great legislation to pass.
It's really heavily being supported by the SPCA of Florida. Excellent. And we're working very closely with them to make sure that this goes through. And then the last thing for me is just to thank you guys for all you do. I mean, I see at so many different events trying to help within the community, donating items, and just all you do for women's rights and to help our ladies to be able to protect themselves, and the training and just the awareness you bring. So you guys have been great partners with me. I remember back in 2012, I was walking in the 4th of July parade. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, my gosh.
You guys were right in front of me. And I think it was the first time we got to know each other and stuff.
Oh, I remember that. My daughter was in, we were playing American Woman on the stereo, and you and all of your officers, and I don't know if it was Johnny or if there was another dog. Was it
Junie was not there in 12.
Okay, so it was another one of your bloodhounds. Yeah, and my daughter goes, Mom, there's something really weird about every time I look in the rearview mirror, there is a sheriff walking up the side of the car, because you guys were on foot. Yeah, so I do remember that, and that's wonderful. And I am so happy to be really partnered with you in keeping women safe and really making our county as great as it is. So, and thank you so much for taking the time on your Sunday. I know that wasn't easy. I appreciate you taking your time on a Sunday to talk with us, and I appreciate everything you do for all of our communities and the county itself.
As I said at the beginning, I'm honored to get to do this job. I never thought I'd get to serve in this capacity, and certainly every morning when I get up and I get to put this uniform on, it's an honor to be in the same uniform as the men and women that are out there protecting us every day. So they're the ones that are out there putting their lives on the line. They're the ones that are missing, Christmas and other holidays and stuff with their family. They're the ones that truly deserve all of the credit for our crime rate going down and just the professionalism of our agency. Man, it's just I'm blessed. I have a great team, and I'm smart enough to stay out of their way. They do amazing stuff.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Thank you very much for tuning in with us, and we will be back in a few more weeks. We're going to continue these talks, and we're having a great time doing it. Right, Richard?
Absolutely.
Right.